In the expensive silence of the private dining room, the only sound was the clinking of ice in whiskey glasses. Amara, a 27-year-old African woman, moved with a quiet grace between the heavy oak chairs. Her uniform, a crisp white collared shirt, red vest, red skirt, and a matching red tie, was a bright spot of color in a room filled with powerful men in gray suits. Her job was to be invisible, to refill water glasses and clear plates while hearing nothing. But Amara saw and heard everything. Her job as a waitress was a self-imposed exile from a past life that had betrayed her, but the genius she possessed had never left. It was merely sleeping. Tonight, it was wide awake and screaming. At the head of the table sat Jinwoo, a man who commanded the room with the effortless authority of a king. Dressed in an immaculate black Mafia suit and a white collared shirt, his handsome face was a mask of cool indifference, but his dark eyes missed nothing. At only 31, he was the powerful Korean Mafia boss of the city's largest syndicate, a man known for his sharp mind and brutal code of honor. His associate, a nervous, sweating man named Mr. Choi, was finishing a presentation. On the table, next to a bottle of scotch and a stack of bonds, lay an old document and a diamond the size of a pigeon's egg. "As you can see, Mr. Kwan," Mr. Choi said with a flourish, "the imperial seal of the last Joseon Empress is certified. And the Tears of the Dragon, diamond, is flawless. The $150 million is a mere formality." As Amara refilled Mr. Choi's water glass, her eyes flickered over the items. Her mind, a vast library of obscure knowledge, instantly saw the truth. The document's paper had the wrong watermark for its supposed age, a subtle detail that screamed it was a modern fake. The diamond, while stunning, had a tiny flaw near its edge, a telltale sign that it was a synthetic stone created in a lab, not the legendary natural gem. A cold dread filled her. To speak up would be suicide. She was just a waitress, an invisible woman in a city that barely saw her. But to let this betrayal happen, to let this treacherous insider swindle a man like the Korean Mafia boss Jinwoo, that felt like a different kind of death. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she placed the water pitcher down on the table. The soft click sounded like a gunshot in the silent room. Jinwoo's sharp, cold eyes lifted from the diamond and landed directly on her. For the first time, she was no longer invisible. She was a target. The decision was made. Amara straightened her back, feeling the weight of every man's gaze fall upon her. The bodyguards by the door tensed. Mr. Choi shot her a look of pure hatred. Only Jinwoo remained perfectly still, his eyes narrowed with a predatory focus. He didn't dismiss her. He waited. Amara's voice was steady and clear, betraying none of the fear inside her. She looked directly at the powerful man at the head of the table and spoke in perfect Korean, a language she had mastered long ago. "Excuse me, Mr. Kwan," Mr. Choi scoffed. "What is it, girl?" "We are in the middle of something very important, Dash." "The document," Amara said, her eyes locked on Jinwoo's, completely ignoring his underling. "And the stone. They are fake." A deep, profound silence fell over the room. Mr. Choi's face turned a sickly white. "This is absurd," he blustered. "Mr. Kwan, this waitress is delusional. She should be removed immediately." Jinwoo raised a single, elegant finger, and Mr. Choi's mouth snapped shut. The Mafia boss had not taken his eyes off Amara. A dangerous curiosity was stirring in their depths. "Explain," he commanded. The word was not a request. Amara's mind raced, pulling from years of study. "The papers for the Imperial Seal are dated 1898, she began, her tone shifting from waitress to expert. "But the watermark on the paper is a style that wasn't used for official Korean documents until 1905. The original would have been on traditional hanji paper. This is high-quality linen, but it's wrong." She then nodded towards the diamond. "And the Tears of the Dragon, it's famous for having 0 impurities. This stone, under magnification, has a tiny flaw. It's a brilliant synthetic, made in a lab. Worth a lot of money, but not a fraction of the price of the real thing. It's a magnificent forgery, but a forgery nonetheless." Mr. Choi was trembling now. "Lies. How could a waitress possibly know such things?" he stammered. Amara met his frantic gaze. "Some of us have hobbies," she said simply. Jinwoo finally broke his silence, his voice a low purr. And what, little waitress, is your hobby? Debunking $100 million deals. He pushed his chair back and stood, a powerful protector emerging from the cold businessman. He gave a curt nod to his guards. Take Mr. Choi to the car, then his focus returned to Amara, a new, intense light in his eyes. You're coming with me. You're going to prove it. The ride to his penthouse was thick with silent intimidation. Amara sat on the plush leather of the armored sedan, watching the city lights blur past. What have I done? She wondered. She had shattered her quiet, anonymous life and been pulled into the world of a dangerous Korean mafia boss. She stole a glance at him. He was brutally handsome, but it was the intelligence in his stillness that was truly captivating. He was more than a gangster. He was a king in his own kingdom. He finally turned his head, his gaze pinning her to the seat. You are not a waitress, he stated. My uniform would suggest otherwise, Amara replied, her wit a shield against her fear. A corner of his mouth ticked upward, a ghost of a smile. Your uniform is a costume. Your words in that room were the words of an expert. Who are you? I'm the woman who just saved you from losing $150 million, she deflected. You haven't saved it yet, he countered smoothly. You've only made a claim. The car descended in a private lift, opening directly into a sprawling penthouse that overlooked the city. The space was a testament to minimalist luxury, with walls of glass and priceless art. His men brought in the document and the diamond, placing them on a heavy slate table. The disgraced Mr. Choi was brought in as well, held between two guards, his face a mask of waxy fear. Jinwoo gestured toward the table. My former associate, Mr. Choi, is being detained. For his sake, and for yours, I hope your hobbies are as good as you claim. The threat was clear. He was offering her a chance to prove herself. I'll need a digital microscope and a jeweler's loupe, she said, her professional voice returning. Minjun nodded to one of his men, who left to get the items. For the first time in years, amidst the terror, Amara felt a strange thrill. She felt truly seen. The equipment arrived quickly. As Amara approached the table, a familiar calm settled over her. This was her world, a world of facts and empirical truths. Jinwoo stood back, arms crossed over his broad chest, watching her with unnerving intensity. Let's start with the easy part, she murmured, fitting the loupe to her eye. She held the diamond under the light. A natural diamond grows over billions of years deep inside the earth. A synthetic diamond is grown quickly in a lab. The layers are too perfect, she angled the stone. There, she said, pointing. Look at the girdle, the thin edge. You'll see faint, parallel lines. Growth lines. In a natural stone, they would be irregular. These are perfectly straight. It's the signature of a laboratory. She offered the loupe to Jinwoo. He took it, his powerful hand surprisingly gentle. He leaned over the stone, and she saw the moment he understood. A muscle in his jaw tightened as cold fury dawned in his eyes. Continue, he said. Amara moved to the microscope, placing the document under its lens and connecting it to a large television screen. An image of magnified paper fibers filled the screen. As I said, this should be hanji paper. Notice the smooth, uniform fibers here? This is modern linen pulp. She switched to a UV light, and a faint, glowing watermark appeared, an intricate letter. And there's the forger's biggest mistake. Pride. That is the signature of Albrecht Haupt, a brilliant forger who was caught in 2018. He couldn't resist hiding his own mark in his work. This isn't just a fake, Mr. Kwan. It's a Haupt fake. She switched off the equipment. The silence in the room was heavy, with irrefutable proof. Mr. Choi let out a choked sob. Amara felt a grim satisfaction. Her expertise, the very thing that had once ruined her life, had just saved it. All eyes turned to Jinwoo. His face was calm, but his eyes were a brewing storm. He walked slowly toward Mr. Choi, who began to babble pathetic excuses. Minjun, it was a mistake. They threatened my family. Jinwoo stopped in front of him. You are my father's man, he said, his voice quiet and deadly. He trusted you. I, against my better judgment, continued that trust. You did this out of jealousy. You thought I was too young. You saw this as a way to bankrupt me. He turned his back on Mr. Choi, a gesture of final dismissal. "Get him out of my sight," he commanded his guards. "Ensure his betrayal is met with the appropriate consequences." The guards hauled the weeping man away. Jinwoo then walked to the bar and poured 2 glasses of scotch. He handed one to Amara. "You have a remarkable talent, Amara," he said, using her name for the first time. "I'm in your debt." "You don't owe me anything," she said, her voice a little shaky now that the adrenaline was fading. "I don't recall discussing a fee," he said, a hint of a real smile on his face. $150 million is a significant sum to save. I believe a finder's fee is in order. Let's say 1%, and a new job. Your talents are wasted serving drinks. $1.5 million and a new life. It was an entry into his world, a world of danger and intrigue. She looked at his handsome, dangerous face. "What kind of job?" she asked, her heart beginning to pound for an entirely different reason. "I have a feeling," the powerful Korean Mafia boss said, his eyes holding hers, "that you will be my new truth detector." Amara's new life was both jarring and seductive. She was now a consultant for the city's most feared Mafia boss. She moved into a suite in his penthouse, complete with a state-of-the-art laboratory. Her waitress uniform was replaced by a wardrobe of designer clothes. But the tension remained, especially in the charged space between her and Jinwoo. He would often appear in her lab late at night, a glass of scotch in hand, simply to watch her work. His gaze was a physical weight, a mix of curiosity and something deeper. "You look at a painting as if you're interrogating it," he observed one evening. "Every object tells a story," she replied, not looking up from a 17th century canvas. "The paint, the varnish, the brushstrokes, they're all witnesses. My job is to hear their testimony." He stepped closer, his clean scent cutting through the sterile air of the lab. "And what is this one telling you?" "It's telling me it was painted by a student of Rembrandt, not the master himself," she explained. A shortcut in the primer that Rembrandt never would have taken. She finally turned to look at him, their faces only inches apart. His eyes were no longer cold, but dark and intense. "You see things others miss," he murmured. "It's been called a curse," she whispered. The air crackled between them. He respected her mind, and she was drawn to the honor she saw beneath his ruthless exterior. It was a dangerous, intoxicating dance. "To me," he said, his gaze dropping to her lips, "it is the most valuable thing in this city." The romance between them wasn't in flowers or sweet words. It was in this shared space of mutual, high-stakes appreciation. The consequences of Mr. Choi's betrayal came swiftly. His confession revealed a conspiracy with a rival syndicate, the Yamashita Gumi. They had supplied the forgeries, planning to use the failed deal to trigger a financial crisis and seize Jinwoo's territory. The threat was now immediate and lethal. One rainy evening, a silent alarm beeped on Amara's computer. An encrypted file had arrived from outside Jinwoo's network. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, bypassing the security. An image loaded on her screen, a security feed from the lobby showing 3 men in maintenance uniforms with bulges under their jackets. They weren't there to fix anything. Just as she was about to call Jinwoo, the door to her lab slid open. He stood there, phone already to his ear, his face grim. "They're in the building," he said, his voice laced with steel. "We're leaving. Now." He grabbed her arm and pulled her from the lab. The penthouse was now a war zone, his men moving with deadly grace. He led her to a hidden panel in his library that opened onto a dark stairwell. "They'll cut the power to the elevators," he explained, guiding her down. The sound of muffled gunfire echoed from above. Strangely, panic didn't take hold. With Jinwoo's hand firmly on her back, she felt safe. They emerged into the underground garage where a black sedan was waiting. As they ran for the car, 2 gunmen appeared from the shadows. Jinwoo reacted instantly, shoving Amara behind him and shielding her with his body as he drew his own weapon. The garage erupted in gunfire. Crouched behind him, Amara saw the muzzle flashes illuminate his face, his expression one of absolute, lethal focus. He was not just a businessman. He was a warrior defending his territory, and she was now part of it. They escaped to a stark, anonymous safe house. The silence here was thin and hollow. Jinwoo was on his phone, speaking in rapid, low Korean, a general rallying his troops. Amara wrapped her arms around herself, finally feeling the aftershocks of the attack. In that garage, she had been completely vulnerable, and he had been willing to die for her. He finished his call and turned to face her. A long, shallow gash was on his forearm, a crimson line on his white shirt. "You're hurt," she said. He glanced down as if it were nothing. Amara found a first aid kit and gently began to clean the wound. He tensed, then relaxed, allowing her to care for him. The quiet intimacy of the moment felt more profound than any kiss. "Why did you hide your skills?" he asked, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. "Why were you a waitress?" Amara paused. "My expertise, they cost someone I loved everything. My mentor. We uncovered a massive fraud scheme at our university. The people involved were powerful. They couldn't disprove our findings, so they destroyed our reputations. I was blacklisted. I promised myself I would never use that part of my mind again. I just wanted to be invisible." He reached out and tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his gaze. His eyes held a fierce, protective tenderness. "The world tried to bury your light," he said, his thumb stroking her jaw. "I will not let that happen. With me, you will never be invisible." It was a vow that healed a part of her she hadn't known was still broken. The space between them collapsed, and he leaned down and kissed her. It was not a gentle kiss. It was a raw, desperate claiming, born from the realization of what they had almost lost. In the days that followed, the safe house became their command center. Armed with the Mafia boss's resources and Amara's intellect, they went on the offensive. Amara became a digital ghost, tearing through the Yamashitagumi's financial networks. She found their weak points, their shell corporations, their secret ledgers. "They're laundering money through high-end art auctions," she explained to Jinwoo, pointing to a complex flowchart. "They buy fakes, then use forged documents to sell them at inflated prices, creating clean cash. The key is a man named Kenji Tanaka. He's their chief authenticator and the head of their operations in this city." The final confrontation was not a shootout, but something far more elegant. Jinwoo arranged a meeting at a high-stakes auction at a neutral gallery. Tanaka, a sleek, arrogant man, agreed to attend, completely unaware of the genius at Jinwoo's side. Amara walked into the gallery on Jinwoo's arm, no longer a waitress but his queen, dressed in a stunning black gown. The climax came when the auction centerpiece was unveiled, a supposed Van Gogh painting. Tanaka himself stepped forward to vouch for its authenticity. "A masterpiece," he declared, "valued at over $200 million. Then, Amara spoke, her voice clear and amplified. "It's a fake," Tanaka sneered. "And who is this?" "This," Jinwoo said, his voice ringing with pride, "is the woman who is about to ruin you." With cold precision, Amara publicly dismantled the forgery, pointing out the use of modern paints and the wrong type of canvas. She exposed not just the painting, but Tanaka's entire operation. As she spoke, Jinwoo's men, disguised as staff, silently blocked the exits. The police, armed with the evidence Amara had anonymously provided, raided the gallery. Kenji Tanaka was exposed not by a bullet, but by the truth. With their network shattered, the Yamashitagumi's power crumbled. The war was over. Back in the penthouse, the city lights glittered below like a conquered kingdom. The room, once a symbol of Jinwoo's solitary power, now felt like their shared sanctuary. He came to stand behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "It's over," she whispered. "A new beginning," he corrected. He turned her to face him, his eyes filled with respect, adoration, and profound love. "I once told you that your talent was the most valuable thing in the city," he said, his voice a low rumble. "I was wrong. You are the most valuable thing in my life." Tears of joy welled in Amara's eyes. The invisible girl was gone, replaced by a woman who had found her power, her purpose, and her